for money, or it's just not feasible because of materials or the locations. So we're going to create a location that appeals to the director's ideas, and to do that we've got to create miniatures, build everything small.
Without giving too much away, then what is this model going to get up to?
Well, this model, it's not you think miniatures has been small-scale models. This model is actually going to be 1.2 metres long. It's got to be large because it's got to do a number of things. That is, it's got to be able to steer and power along and turn and skid. It also at one stage drives into the whale's mouth to actually kill off the whale and pops out his tail.
Taking what's mine. Don't try to stop us.
You're out of your league, little fella. Kiss your ass. Goodbye.
Take him out, Trevor. Change down, Trevor. The duodenum's pretty steep.
Which way, boss? Left or right?
Follow the light. Get me back to the theater. Double quick.
Sure thing, boss.
I'll have to change my suit. I'm covered in...
But where does a Feeble get a new suit?
How difficult has it been making costumes for these not real people, these extraordinarily shaped puppets and characters?
Very difficult, because they're all such awkward sizes. Everything had to be draped. Every single garment that had to be made for the puppets, which was a huge amount, had to be draped with cloth, and then we worked from there and used that as our pattern.
Someone like Cedric, for example, I mean, how on earth do you make a garment for a creature that's that extraordinary?
Well, you start with the base of a calico and work, and then you end up with leather. For this one, I actually draped it onto a base and then worked off that and built the leather around it.
Enormous scale.
He's a bikie, so he's got a look tough.
A big bikie.
Yeah.
And these are his trousers.
Those are his leather pants.
Yeah.
He is rather big. He's got a big bum.
Yeah, very strange bottom.
He's very hunched over. He is. It's an odd shape. Interesting, though.
The other end of the scale, of course, we've got something like that, these tiny little boots. Who are they for?
Those are for Wynyard. He uses those in his knife throwing scene. These are little children's boots that we brought and used carbol to make the toes a bit more exciting, and a few bits of detail in silver.
I don't think any real actress would be seen dead shaped like that. I mean, she's an extraordinary woman. How do you go about draping, as it were, a figure of that shape?
It's a nightmare. She's very awkward. You can't think this is a woman, therefore I'm going to use a size 12 pattern or a 15 or an 18 or a 20. You have to actually work with the fabric and pleat and dart where is necessary, which on this puppet was very difficult, especially working through different areas. No waist, hardly any bottom.
What size bust are we talking about?
2 metres.
Making movies is really an ingenious process at the best of times for all departments, and I think that New Zealanders are probably ideally suited to it, because we are very ingenious, and the fact that we're making a film like this and we're doing it in an old railway shed, it's freezing cold, hence the fact we're wearing coats. I mean, there's times that we're filming in here and there's mist on our breaths, it's so freezing, and the set has been knocked together out of bits of 4x2 and chipboard, particle board, and there's just so much detail on the set that's made out of paint lids, paint tin lids and yogurt pots, and it's just, it's exciting because you're creating an illusion, the whole thing, which is one of the things that I like so much about filmmaking, is the whole, as I say, the magical thing, the creating of illusion, and the fact that you're what people see on screen comes from a place like this is quite amazing.
Play that. Scene 97.
Hold on, good day.
This is a historic moment, Arthur. Tonight we rocket into superstardom.
It's a honor to be a part of that masterpiece.
Okay, we cut.
All the dialogue tracks were recorded before we started shooting, because the easiest way to make a film like this is to have your dialogue, your voices of your characters already recorded on a tape, and then just do the puppeteering to playback. So in actual fact, what I've had to do is direct the film twice. Before we ever started shooting, I spent 3 days in a studio with some actors and directed their performance all the way through vocally. And I mean, obviously, while I was doing that, I had to think of the visual nature of the film as well, because if if they were, for instance, going to be saying a line of dialogue while they were getting up off a chair, you've actually got to make it sound as if they are. They've got to put a bit of effort into their voices. So I actually had to have it pretty clear in my mind what the pictures were going to be, that were going to be linked up with these voices. And it was an interesting exercise, because by having all the voice track recorded before we ever shot, I was able to sit down at home, lie on the couch and shut my eyes and basically just run the tape through, the whole 90 minutes of it, and just visualise the movie.
Jackson's hands-on approach means he directs and operates the camera.
Sign coming up.
I made a decision right at the beginning that I'd be the camera operator on the Feebles. It's not because I'm a particularly good camera operator, but I've just come from a background where I've sort of shot everything I've made. My Super 8 movies that I made when I was young, I was operating the camera on. I did most of the camera operating on Bad Taste, and I think the thought of just sitting back as a director on the Feebles was actually a little bit of a worry to me. I just wanted to be in there and more involved. The other advantage too was that because the puppets are your performers, and just the nature of the puppeteering and the way that they come across on camera, unless you're looking right down the lens at what you're getting, you're never quite sure of the way the puppets are coming across. They look different from certain angles.
Right now, the thing, the stage, oh, hang on. It's all wrong. All wrong, guys. Let's just forget about it. Well, I bought that one. Everything was wrong. The stage started turning too soon, the sign came up too soon. It was all wrong.
Yeah, Saturday.
Put your hands together for the fabulous Feebles Variety Hour.
Meet the Feebles, meet the Feebles. We're not your average, ordinary people. Meet the Feebles, meet the Feebles.
This is a historic moment, Arthur. Tonight we rocket into superstardom.
It's honored to be a part of it, Mr. Bleach.
More than this! How difficult is it to direct puppets as opposed to human actors?
Well, of course, what you are in fact doing is directing the puppeteers, although it's interesting because you get so jaded on a shoot like this that half the time you're not actually directing the puppeteers at all. You're not talking to the puppeteers down below. You're actually looking straight at the faces of the puppets, and you're asking the puppet to do things. You have to sort of shake your head from time to time and stop yourself doing that, because you do start to think of them as characters. You go inside the storeroom where we keep them all, and you walk in, and although they're all lifeless, sort of stuck on hooks or on poles, you actually know them all, and you almost expect them to turn and